Okay, welcome back to part 2 of episode 9 of I Think You Think. You can find part 1 most likely wherever you found this one, or if you're having trouble, you can find a link to the whole playlist in the underbar. So, without further ado, there would be normally a topic 2, but as you know, we are continuing on with our discussion about social media, the effects of social media, which is right about finally, after a half hour in the first part, we've kind of gotten into a little bit more of the meat of the effects of social media. James, you had just hit on with the different aspects and how they kind of play off of each other in the sense that anything that is necessarily good or bad in one aspect of social media, there tends to be an opposite good or bad of that aspect of that social media as well. And then said that this is, something that society kind of is having to deal with as a whole. The question that I was interested in kind of getting your view on is, what do you think might be the answer? Yes, solve this problem in 5 sentences or less. What do you think is the answer for how to go about having more of the positives and less of the negatives in regards to social media, like Facebook and Twitter?
Well, number one, in 5 sentences or less is going to be difficult. So that's our first problem. I will try to
No, you
tackle.
you gotta solve it.
I'm already 3 sentences in, man. We're done. I can't do it. No, you know, I think okay. So if you go like when you first met your wife's parents, you kind of have an idea of how to act in that situation because there's etiquette, and that's etiquette that's kind of been instilled in most people. On how we act in certain situations to be proper. And there's a different level of etiquette, but there's still even barriers when you're just hanging out with your friends. There's things you don't do. There's etiquette. Um, if you're talking with someone on the phone, there's a certain level of etiquette. How we treat strangers, and like if you're at the Line and Jewel or whatever it is, all these things, there's like established levels of what's right and what's wrong and how we're supposed to interact. But those rules haven't really been established or at least agreed upon to the point where it's kind of taught.
Hmm. Maybe an answer is to start programming these kinds of etiquettes in. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to think of when was it that you learned how to queue into a line or to stand in a line?
I don't know, probably, being held, like holding hands with my mom as she was, in line and then running away and, being a little and then getting yelled at to come back and stand next to her. I don't know.
I remember in like elementary school and kindergarten having to learn to stand in lines. Not specifically like, oh, I don't get it. I don't get the concept. But like that it was very typical, you stood in a line when you went somewhere and you stood in a line when you came back and those type of things. And I'm not saying that we need to start at 5 years old explaining to kids how to have etiquette in social media, but I think that's an interesting kind of concept that to hit on is that maybe there's an aspect of teaching the generation below us, or even now, we now starting to get into the generation that's only a few years away, that's below them, the etiquette of social media.
Right. I mean, that's where we're failing. That's what's taking what should be a way for, younger people. I mean, if we get back to high school age and middle school age, what should be a great forum for people to connect and, find people that are into the same things maybe they really love reading, which, all of us, people of our ages, Justin, know that it's like a dying art, reading novels for
Right.
fun in the younger generation. But maybe, you have a kid who's really into reading X type of book, whatever it is, Facebook, should be an opportunity for them to find more people that are in their same age group that maybe read the same things they do, as opposed to them being made fun of for reading. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I hadn't even thought about that previously. It just sort of, as you were talking, it just sort of came to mind that, it's something that we're kind of missing. And I think even there's plenty of adults that are missing it. Um,
Well, yeah, but I mean, for some people, they can be as old as us or even older, and they've only been in social media for the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, they're still very young in social media, and there's other kids who are half our age who have been doing social media since they could write.
right.
You know, and so this is kind of a unique scenario in which the etiquette is not necessarily just something that needs to be taught to the young, but it needs to be taught to the young in using the technology.
The noobs.
Yeah, the noobs.
Well,
Nice.
I think one of the biggest hurdles for it is going to be like you gave the example of like when did you learn to stand in line, or when did you learn, how you act appropriately, maybe when you're at your grandparents' house or whatever it is. And those are all situations where you're with a group of people when you do it. Social media, more often than not, is a solo endeavor.
Yes.
It's you and your computer, you and your smartphone, you and your tablet, and you're on Facebook or you're perusing Twitter or whatever it is. It's just you there. So there's no one to, as soon as you start typing that stupid thing into your Facebook, to slap your hand and go, no, that's not what you do. So it's not as easy to teach it. Teaching a young child like how we stand in line, it probably actually basically happens as a society because all the adults already know how to do it. So you just see it happening, and that's just the way it is. It's like the village teaching because everybody does it the same, the standard's the same. Wherever you go, it always pretty much happens in the same way. So we just like automatically teach it. So I think that would be something, the older generation has to have a little more responsibility around how they treated and each other on Facebook or in social media in general. But see, it just occurred to me that this is what it is now. Right now, it's Facebook and Twitter and some of the other things we mentioned. But when the kids that are, you know, just starting kindergarten now, 6 years old, 10 years from now in 2022 or 2023, um, when they are getting their driver's licenses, social media realistically is probably going to be drastically different. Drastically. So now it's not as cut and dry um, as having taught them how to utilize these. It's more about teaching people how to just interact with one another and be responsible around it. I mean, and any parent who has a child who, you know, they that is, I won't put an age on it, but we'll just say a child who has a Facebook and doesn't have the password to that Facebook is definitely not leading us in the right direction as far as this goes. Because if you can't at any time, say you have a 12-year-old kid, has a Facebook, maybe has a Twitter, whatever, and you're letting them go on there and you're not monitoring them in any way, then you're more likely than not contributing to the problem. Unless that child has truly earned the right to have that. And if they have, I don't see why they would mind you having it, if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying. Um, as a father who has a son who has both a Facebook and has a YouTube page, um, he actually doesn't do too much interacting on those things. They're there so that members of our family can friend him, can watch little videos that he makes and things like that. But he's not the one who uploads the videos. He's not typically the one who might type anything actually in there. Um, we are. I mean, we might help him type something in, or we'll sign on and everything for him. But he's 7 versus a 12 or 13-year-old. but yeah, I mean, you're right in the sense that it's the uh, the kind of community that kind of sets what the etiquette or the morality or the ethics are for a particular activity, and they do that by uh, subconsciously or consciously rewarding the person that they're trying to train or the child that they're trying to train into the ethics of the society. um, they reward them for doing it the right way, and they shun or treat as a pariah the child or whoever they're trying to get into the society when they do it the wrong way. And with social media, because if I go onto somebody's Facebook page and I spend 3 hours going through their Facebook page and looking at all their pictures and or going through all of their feed and going back and reading things and anything that I can get access to, is that bad etiquette? And who makes the determination? There's nobody around me who goes, you probably shouldn't be doing that, or don't you think you're spending a little bit too much time there? Um, because it's my own determination. Do I think I'm doing anything wrong? Because it's just this one or two people. Um, it seems to we're talking about it like it's this phenomenon that's kind of happened with Facebook and Twitter, but this has been going on for a while. I mean, if you go back even to the very first bulletin boards and Prodigy, for those who don't know, Prodigy was one of those first kind of get on the internet kind of sites where it kind of kept everything together for you. It was before chats didn't really exist yet. You couldn't chat with people; you just emailed when you wanted to talk. But they had like games that you could use in the Prodigy program, and then the biggest thing was the bulletin boards, the kind of like forums nowadays, um, or even forums a few years ago, as people have kind of migrated away from them. But it basically you would post something and people could kind of comment on it and post other things to it. Um, but there was still the same kind of sort of etiquette that was kind of hazy. You see it a lot of times in what are typically known as trolls, internet trolls, people who intentionally will say things in order to flame or irritate or upset someone else. I mean, that is the entire desire of a troll, someone who just they're interested in trying to cause um, either a fight or just kind of cause some sort of argument. Um, and so the question is that showing etiquette? And I would say that being a troll is not showing etiquette, but there's an aspect of that social society that it takes place, and I don't know.
It's definitely I don't feel like it's getting better on its own. I feel like it's moving downwards. I mean, this is another aspect of it, but I see families come into my restaurant where all four of them are on some electronic device. They're not interacting at all. So, I mean, not only are we dysfunctional as a society on these social networks, our dependence on them and just the ease of access of all the stuff that's on these little pocket-sized devices that we all carry around now, um, is disconnecting us from the people that are right in front of us.
That could be. I kind of figured you'd bring that one up. I know that's a story you've used in the past, uh, and I understand. I understand that. I think while to a certain extent it's tragic that families are at that point or get to that point, there are some aspects in which it's better to at least have some kind of a connection. And if that connection is only through social media, that's better than no connection. And what I mean by that is, for whatever reason, some people just can't connect with other members of their family, but they'll connect with them via social media. I'm trying to think of a good example. It might be something as simple as um, I can't stand talking to my parents, but I don't mind, posting something and my parents liking it, or my parents interacting with me to a certain extent on Facebook. Uh, that's not a really good one. Probably what when I was thinking about one of the wonderful things that I love about what social media has given us, it's more along the line of there are people out there who cannot communicate. They are limited in their communication, either because they lack the facilities of it, or they have any some kind of a mental thing going on where it's difficult for them to formulate thoughts and ideas. And because the implementation of social media and computers, they've been able to uh, interact with the world.
Right. Some like extreme levels of social anxiety that make it face to face very difficult, but in a calm, controlled, comfortable situation. Yeah.
Yes, agrophobics.
And I don't want to make it seem like I feel like social media is some evil beast, because there are a lot of benefits, and for every negative there's a positive, but I would definitely like to see us try to make it so the positive is far outweighing the negative. And maybe a place like Facebook isn't the place for that. Maybe Facebook will never really be more than what it is. You know, this splash page of whatever's going on. I ate a burger, delicious. You know, weather sucks. I hate my job. Um, Bob's a big old d bag. Whatever it is. Whatever complaints or comments or humorous little quips or daily information is getting posted up there. And that's mostly what it is. It's that and a bunch of like e-cards and picture updates is pretty much what it is. Um, and maybe Facebook could never be more than that. But social media, I mean, when you add in things like Pinterest and Instagram, and even the Twitters and the Tumblrs out there, is so much more than just what Facebook is. Like in Twitter, you get to pick who you follow, or, if you're actually someone who really tweets, you can build followers of people that are maybe like-minded or interested in what you're saying. Um, Instagram is all just photos, which is kind of neat. It's a very kind of personalized perspective. Not like I truly understand it, but I think I get the general gist. Pinterest, collections, again, photos, links, things like that. I mean, there are different aspects or different ways of approaching this social media that, from what I can gather about, especially Instagram and Pinterest, comparative to Facebook, are relatively harmless. Um, it's here's a picture of a beautiful tree. I mean, it is what it is. Like it, don't like it. I want to see more like this. I think it's pretty much your options on Pinterest, although don't quote me on that because I barely ever been on Pinterest. But I think those becoming more popular these last few years shows how social media is constantly like morphing and changing. And there's no way to really guess what it will be like in 10 years. I wish I could, because I would just invent that so that in 10 years I can be really, really rich. Um, but we really, I mean, there are so many positives and so many negatives as far as what's out there right now. I feel like we have, as a society, need to make some sort of jump. There needs to be some leap that we collectively make together that makes the next Facebook or Facebook 2.0, if it's still actually Facebook, something that's got a little more class to it, for our kids. I mean, because I don't feel like that aspect of our society is really going anywhere good. I think it's only going to get worse because there
Okay.
is barely any accountability.
Yeah, I can kind of understand what you're saying. I don't know. I'm with you on that. I don't know what the future is going to hold in terms of what will be the future kind of social media. I think that the danger, not danger, but the I think the narrowing of the view that we have is that social media is something that's specifically uh, American, or that only people in the United States use. And while I think it's a great goal to kind of want to work towards this, whatever is the next one, having this kind of a classier version of Facebook, or a classier kind of social media that incorporates a lot of this etiquette. We've got to keep in mind that many people around the world are using social media now. In fact, I mean, a lot of the Arab Spring and a lot of the throwings of dictators were originated on social media, and to a certain extent, in those societies, what those groups were doing on social media, um, from our perspective, would be there would be etiquette behind that. That would be a good thing what they were doing, that they were trying to peacefully come together, and air grievances that they wouldn't have been able to do in the open forum of the state that they lived within. But within that society, it would have been frowned upon. And so it really becomes like we'd have to not only have this discussion about um, what is etiquette online, but what is etiquette online from a global perspective.
Yes, but I think it's just like anything else. People stand in line the same way around the world. People are taught to respect their elders throughout the world. And there is a certain level, for, we'll say, 90% of societies, it's probably much more than that. It's probably the majority of the world. There is a certain level of politeness that you approach your social interactions with. Obviously, there's exceptions to every rule, and there's some people out there that just don't know how to approach things in the right way, even in person. Um, but yeah, I think it definitely crosses any like country lines, because it is about all of us. Because it is, I mean, these things are one of the few places where anyone from anywhere within reason can be on here. So, if I want to be Facebook friends with some people in Sweden, I could be Facebook friends with some people in Sweden. As long as we share the language, it's not a big deal. It's easy enough. Um,
And Facebook has been making some strides to even prevent the fact that you don't share languages. To bypass it.
right, which would be awesome. I mean, that would be a huge leap forward. Um, but I mean, the bottom line is it's on us as individuals to start, to make it more than just entertainment, because it is really like
Mm.
um, a social meeting place, where you leave your calling card for someone to see until enough people leave their card on top of it that I can't see it anymore unless I really look for it.
I would say, I like what you're saying in terms of, eh, eh, it's got to be more like a social meeting place, because what we come back to is what the concept of media is. And media is, um, for the most part, I mean, there's lots of things that involve media, but I think what it's really been distilled down to is entertainment. And social media is really social entertainment. I'm entertained by what my friend is having for lunch. Um, I'm entertained by these pictures of cats who Ken has cheeseburger. Um, and so, I have a friend who probably would agree with me that, that's an interesting way where the sites like Google Plus, is kind of trying to get away from more of the social entertainment, and try to get more into this human narrative kind of meeting of minds, almost like an online sort of place where we can get together and discuss ideas and collaborate with each other and come up with ways to solve all the problems of the world so that we can all live happier together. Um, which kind of is, to a certain extent, I think you think is is an aspect of that same kind of thought process in trying to bring people together to discuss ideas and have differences in opinion, and kind of talk about those differences, uh, which all of these kind of concepts are born out of social media, and maybe that's the next step, as opposed to being social media, more social meeting and social collaboration.
which is good. I mean, I know that on Google Plus, there's a Google Hangouts with the and everybody, and I think when you see people, even on a camera feed, it definitely makes them more real, and it adds another level. And technology is constantly getting bigger, better, faster, where that could be, a very simple thing for any computer to or tablet to just jump on and be in a situation where, we're having this conversation face to face as opposed to, you know, in just cold black text on a white background, whatever it
Right.
might be. Um, but it's definitely, I mean, all of the what would like our presence and our existence in a way that we are creating online as individuals, whether young or old, as we build that, I think it has the definite possible detriment of taking away from, what we actually are, what we are, our flesh and blood. Because I mean, I could be anything I want on Facebook. If I want to start spouting racist stuff, I could just become a racist. I mean, I don't think I'm going to break my brain where I'm dumb like that, but it could happen. I could just start pretending to be racist. No one would ever know the difference. If I tried to do that face to face, anyone who actually knows me would know that I was full of it and I was pulling their leg. I could decide to be a really big Justin Bieber fan and just do that online. I don't have to. It's very easy to lie. It's very easy to mislead online, where we have all the body language cues and everything that we unconsciously give up. Like you were saying, how society would shun you if you're not following the right rules. When we were talking about being in a line, a lot of that is just body language that we see. You look at someone who may have done nothing but just change their posture just in a subconscious reaction to what you're doing. And we read these clues and we recognize them, but there's nothing for that online. There's nothing to teach us stuff that we don't already know. I feel like I'm treading over the same ground again all of a sudden. It's such a big subject. There's so much, and I feel
We've barely scratched the surface.
right, right. I mean, we definitely, I think we hit a couple of the aspects pretty hard that are social media, but there's so much more. I mean, Kickstarter is a good example of like a kind of spin-off from social media, because it links to Twitter and it links to Facebook and all those things, so you can utilize it, you know.
I think there's another one, and I could be very wrong on the name, but it's something like I Made This,
Okay.
where you can, lots of people who do crafting and make things. You make things. You can talk to people about it, and then I think you can even sell some of your crafts.
Okay.
And I could be completely wrong on the website, but it's something to that effect. And as somebody who my wife and I make costumes for Halloween and for conventions and things that we go to, um, a site like that would be kind of interesting, and it's kind of building off of that same sort of social media kind of thing. Um, I kind of like the idea of moving away from just the, what is my friend doing today type social media, and moving more towards the collaborative sort of efforts of working together, um, to do something or to exchange ideas. Seems like a good direction to go. Uh, However, as much as I'd like to keep talking, we are definitely over time. A little bit of audio problems there right at the beginning, but we are running over, so we are going to have to wrap this up. But I would, as with many of our conversations, I don't think we're done. I think that there's more to talk about. We want to still talk about more. If you guys have anything that you've thought about as we were talking that you want to yell at us for or send out to us, go ahead and come to us through our social media, that Facebook, or you can email us, or you can retweet our. Oh, I guess we're not on Twitter yet.
We're getting there though, guys. We'll be
We'll
there.
be there soon. So just wait, it's coming. Um, but yeah, you can get to us on Facebook or you can email us. Yeah. So James, anything you want to wrap up with before we call it a night?
Well, yeah. Besides criticism, any praise would be accepted as well. Any questions anyone has, maybe follow-up questions on this, topics you'd like to hear us go over. Maybe you have some information on something that we bumbled that you want to like point us in the direction of a link to help educate us and maybe give us something near a credential. Any of those things we would more than love to hear from all of you. Give us some feedback, give us some jumping off points. As soon as we start getting some questions from people, we'll definitely start maybe add that in as a segment in our podcast. Otherwise, I think we do have a little surprise for next podcast, and we'll let you know all about that at the beginning of the next one. Otherwise, thanks for everyone who's listening again, and have a great week.